Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of the RailCats Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Safanich, and it's opening day for the RailCats. I know it's not opening day necessarily for the American Association because they did play last night as Cleburne beat up on Winnipeg, even though they didn't really beat up on them. It was 5-3 was the game. It was a good, interesting game. It was a storyline with Logan Watkins going back to Cleburne and facing his old team. Cleburne looks pretty good. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to be able to do in the East this year. But it was nice to be able to... I didn't watch the full game because I have to close all weekend, so I had to spend Mother's Day. And my sister came into town, so spent Mother's Day last night with my mother as we went out to eat. So I watched the last third of the game, so I didn't watch everything. But from what I watched, I'm excited to have American Association Baseball back. But the reason we're here is because it's opening day for the RailCats as they face off against the Chicago Dogs at Impact Field at 6:30 tonight. It's going to be an interesting one. There's a couple storylines going into this situation, and I have a feeling the RailCats may stumble a little bit out of the gate. They are going to be missing a key couple pieces as we look at the inactive list as I updated it yesterday, and now it looks like something out. Granted, this is a little bit different. I don't know what I put. I forgot what I put on the picture I put out yesterday, but it looks like Brandon Fields is now on the disabled list from yesterday. So it looks like that's more people. Or I know he was in the inactive list. I know he was injured, so I don't know what's gonna exactly happen with him. But we have Edward Cuello, who's inactive, Francisco Del Valle is inactive, Carlos Machado, who's inactive, Jesus Mariaga, who's inactive, and Mikey Perez, who is inactive. I believe the only one that I'm positive that's still playing in a different league at the moment is Francisco Del Valle, so that's why he's not with the RailCats right now. I think Mikey Perez is injured. I think the other three, Edward Cuello, Carlos Machado, and Jesus Mariaga, are all having visa issues. I'm not sure. Carlos might be injured. I'm not 100% positive on that one. He did just like my story. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that. So then there hasn't been a lot of releases because of a lot of inactive players. So I'm not sure what we're going to see. This is the hard part. Is I'm not sure a lot of the fielders that we would expect aren't going to. So it's gonna be the outfield is basically set right now. I have a feeling that opening day the outfield is going to look like this: LG Castillo in left field, Will Decker in center, and Carlos Rincon in right. Like, I could guarantee you that's probably what it's going to be. Like, money, put money down. Like, that's odd-on favorite. That's what it's going to be. After that, I have no idea. I really think it's going to be hard in the infield. I think Jackson Valera and Gio Diaz are probably going to be a lock to play. I just don't know where. I just don't know exactly where they're going to go. Gio, I would say could be is probably going to be the second baseman, but he could be the shortstop. I'm not 100% positive. Heck, I could be wrong, and Gio could be playing left field. But I last year, if Gio was jumping all over the place, I would hands down say, yeah, he's gonna play left field, and that would open up the infield for your Miguel Sierra, your Olivier Basabi, like those two would be a lock to play up the middle. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know enough to happen this year. There was a lack of knowing what went on with the Railcats this year. At least last year, I know they played. I think they had a game or two preseason game at home, and I think we were able to watch one or two of them or listen to one or two of them. This year we weren't able to do that. I don't know if they only had one game or two game. Or they had two games because they had like the education another game at home that wasn't televised or it wasn't on the radio. Like we weren't sure what happened. There was no updates to it. So like that's kind of stuck. This like Winnipeg. I think they did a really good job. Like during their preseason was like they they gave out the scores of the games and they kind of gave updates. Like you kind of had an idea of what was going on. So I I wish there was a little bit more of that, and the only reason I wish there's a little bit more of that just to keep track, right? I think a lot of times people have a hard time following this league because there's not a lot of updates. It's hard to attach yourself to a team when you don't always know what's going on, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, as I say almost every year, is just that way people understand or can gravitate towards knowing what's going on, and maybe that helps them understand the league a little bit better and understand what happens inside of it, because a lot of times people, when they don't understand something, they're not going to want to invest time into it all the time. Some people just want to know what's going on and have the avenues right in front of them to know what's going on. And if you don't have the avenues with American Association Baseball and know which way to go with it, you're not gonna keep track of it. You're just gonna go to the games and go, why'd this guy go? Where's this guy at? Why did he leave? What's going on? So they don't understand that. But I'm getting sidetracked. We're talking about opening day, what's going on, what we're looking at. We're facing the Dogs in Impact Field. Going through a little bit of what Chicago did last year. They went 56-44. They were second place in the East Division. They lost to Kansas City in the Miles Wolf Cup. They beat Cleveland in the first round, and then the Milwaukee Men in the second round, or East Division Finals is what you want to probably call it. They do have a new manager, Jeff Isom. However you want to spin whatever happened over there with Butch and players and front office or whatever the case may be, that's not. I'm not here to bash them or to whatever the case. I know I could have open range to do that, and I'm not going to do that. That's not my avenue. They're not my news. They're not my team I follow. They're not the team I mean, obviously, I care about every team in the American Association, but like, they're not the team that I follow. That's not the juicy news. Now, if this was the RailCats, that would be a different story. We would be all over it. I would be all over that because that's who I'm covering. I'm just not going to dip myself into that one. Looking at a couple of returners for the Dogs. You have Stephen Lacey, a pitcher from last year. Now, yeah, hold on. Let's see here. You have Jesus Linguano. Sorry, don't know how to pronounce that name. General MacArthur the Fourth. Love that name. Johnny Turbo, also love that name. They are all returning players from last year. Stu Clyburn returns as the pitching coach. Hitting coach, I'm not even going to try to say his last name. I know his first name is Thomas. And then clubhouse manager Eduardo Lopez. Probably said that wrong too as well. And then the only other one on the roster that we're going to potentially know is Augie Voigt, who did play with the RailCats in 2022. Only played, 13 games as a reliever and an ERA of 378. I forgot what happened with him, if he got released, whatever. Looking at his small numbers, they're really not highly impressive. I know last year with Lake Country he did really well, but Long Island he kind of struggled. Uh, he's going to be good for the Dogs. I think he was a good reliever. I just don't think the time and the place with Gary was necessarily the best. I know that he ended up playing actually again in Chicago that year as well, and he had an ERA of 5.06. So like it's just one of those I don't know, up in the air. I know some people really like him or really high on him. I was never necessarily one of those guys that was high on him at that point. But you know, who knows? Maybe he could just dominate the RailCats, and that's what's going to happen on that portion of it. So looking at the opening day roster, what looks like it's going to be pitchers: Nate Alexander, Andres Diaz, Chris Irwin, Peyton Long, Ryan Munoz, Denier, Olivier. Oh my God! Some of these names I haven't said in a minute, so that's why I'm screwing these up. Franklin Perez, Julio Pinto, Carlos Sanabria, Josh Smith, Ty Tiedemann, Yohan Valdez, Daniel Vitriago, Anders Noriega, Guillermo Quintana, Olivier Basabi, Jacob Bockley, Jose Contreras, Gio Diaz, Marcos Gonzalez, Miguel Sierra, Jackson Valera, LG Castillo, Will Decker, Carlos Rincon are all the active players. Inactive players: Edward Cuello, Francisco Del Valle, Carlos Machado, Jesus Mariaga, Mikey Perez, and Brandon Fields. Looking at the coaching staff, we have a coach of Jason Carbonaro, I think, trainer Evan Gibson, clubhouse manager Darren Kent, Ramon Ortiz, hitting coach, and Brandon. We all know Brandon, right? Osaka. I probably screwed up your last name. Sorry, Brandon. He's a clubhouse manager. So we'll see Brandon, right? Lamar Rogers, manager, and Kent Willis, pitching coach. So that's your coaching staff. Yeah. Saki. I'm sorry, Brandon. I screwed up your name. Probably. I apologize. I wasn't expecting to see you on there. So I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names. But yeah, that is what we're looking at opening day. I don't know if opening day. The first couple weeks are so hard. The first couple weeks and the first couple games are so hard to dial in to what a team's going to be. Really, it's not until I would say close to the All-Star break is really when you start to kind of see what teams are kind of made of to a certain extent, just because it takes a minute to get accumulated to the American Association of Baseball, but just a lot of these players haven't necessarily seen like live action game, and when they have, it was just like 2 or 3 games, and then it's like, all right, these games matter, like, all right, figure it out, got to do it. So that always makes it interesting, because you might see a person struggle, and if that person struggles too long, he's gonna eventually have to move on, and they're gonna have to bring someone else in, and that person could move on and be really good, and you're like, oh, well, why would we get rid of that guy? Well, sometimes something doesn't click until later on, and change the scenery and that kind of stuff. So it's gonna be interesting. I the Dogs is a big rivalry no matter what, with the RailCats. And maybe not so much for Dog fans to RailCats fans, but I think RailCats fans more towards that, just because of the success that Gary has had isn't been high enough to compete. I would say Chicago probably looks more at Milwaukee than anything, and probably looks at King County as like the bigger brother aspect of it and try to beat them. I think that's what they kind of focus on. But I would say the one hub for the RailCats is probably the Dogs, just because that the where you're at geographically is what you're looking at here. So, yeah, that's opening day. I'm not sure who's going to be the opening day starter. I really don't. I don't know what the roster's going to look at. That stuff is not, I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to look into it because I'm going to be completely wrong. It's going to be some off the wall thing and I'm going to be wrong. And it's just how it's going to go. So, yeah, opening day. I know this was a short little podcast, but I'll have a post-game podcast after, just because I close and it's easier to do one after I close, and then my schedule kind of goes back to normal in the next couple weeks. So there won't be a lot of post-game podcasts. There might be like series ending podcast, or if I'm available to do a podcast at the end of the game, I probably will. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so we're looking forward to that. Everything is probably going to be moved to my website as like the main hub, and then it'll direct you to either the YouTube link or the Spotify link to watch it. Or if you're already following on YouTube and already following on Spotify and you get the notification, then you don't have to worry about that. But if you don't and you just click the link, it's going to send you to the website first, and then it's going to send you to YouTube. And then all on the website, I have a special tab for all of the podcast episodes that'll be kind of in order, so you just kind of scroll down and click on it. But yeah, other than that, that's all I got. So enjoy the game, enjoy the American Association baseball season, game 1 out of 100, and listen, I'm just gonna make this one prediction, and it should be a prediction that I make every year. But the RailCats are going to make the playoffs, okay? And they're going to end up 3rd in the division. Okay? That's what I'm predicting. If that's one prediction I'm going this year, that's what I'm going with. All right? I'm not going to try to do the record at all, because you could be 40-60 and still make the playoffs. Not saying that's going to more than likely happen, but you still could be 40-60 and still make the playoffs. But I have a feeling that they're going to end up 3rd in the division, and they're going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to end up having to face, I'm going to say it, they're probably going to have to face Cleburne. I think that's who they're going to play in the first round if they make the playoffs. That's what I'm going to go with. All right, that's all I got. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, enjoy the game, and go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Wrap this one up in green and white.